2:41 p.m. The Persian Gulf. 94 degrees Fahrenheit. Broad, merciless daylight. The water here is shallow, flat, blinding where the sun hits it. There is nowhere to hide. No clouds, no cover. Just a vast, shimmering mirror of heat and salt, stretching from the Iranian coastline to the horizon. And right in the middle of it, moving at 15 knots, cutting a white wake through the blue, was the USS Gerald R. Ford, CVN-78, the most powerful warship ever built by human hands. She was not alone. Around her, in a layered defensive ring that spanned 40 nautical miles in every direction, moved her strike group, USS Leyte Gulf, a Ticonderoga-class cruiser bristling with 122 Mark 41 vertical launch cells, USS Delbert D. Black, USS Cole, USS Laboon, USS Jason Dunham, 4 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, each carrying over 90 missiles of their own. And beneath the surface, invisible and lethal, 2 Los Angeles-class attack submarines held silent station, their passive sonar drinking in every sound the Gulf had to offer. On the flight deck of the Ford, 14 FA-18 Super Hornets sat armed and ready on Alert 5. Engines cold, but pilots strapped in, weapons hot. 2 E-2D Hawkeyes were already airborne, their rotating radar dishes painting a complete air picture from the deck of Pakistan to the mountains of Saudi Arabia. 4 EA-18G Growlers circled at altitude, their electronic warfare suites humming, ready to blind anything that tried to look at the carrier group. This was not just a ship. This was a floating sovereign nation, a city of 5,000 sailors, a weapons system capable of projecting power across 1,000 miles in any direction. Tehran knew this, and they attacked anyway. It began at 2:41 p.m. exactly, with silence that broke into chaos in less than 4 seconds. Across the Iranian coastline, from Bandar Abbas to Jask, to the islands of Abu Musa and Greater Tunb, the Revolutionary Guard Navy had spent 6 weeks preparing what their commanders called the Martyrdom Fist. 112 fast attack craft, everything from Boghammer speedboats packed with explosives to Hudong missile boats and C-14 catamarans, had been dispersed along the coast and hidden under camouflage nets in fishing harbors behind oil platforms. 37 Noor anti-ship missiles, Iranian copies of the Chinese C-802, had been positioned in concealed coastal batteries along the Strait of Hormuz and the Eastern Gulf approaches. 22 Khalij-Fars ballistic missiles, each with a half-ton warhead, had been trucked to pre-surveyed launch points in the Zagros foothills and aimed directly at the Ford's last known coordinates. And in the air, 44 Shade 136 loitering munitions, 40 Mohajer 6 combat drones, and 16 Karar jet-powered suicide drones were queued for simultaneous launch at 11 different sites, from Avaz to Bandar Lenga. The plan was, by every calculation their commanders had made, perfect. A simultaneous, multi-axis, multi-domain saturation strike. Overwhelm the Aegis radar. Overwhelm the point defense systems. Get one, just one, through to the carrier. Sink it. Or damage it badly enough to force it out of the Gulf. Prove to the world that America's floating fortresses were not invincible. Prove it to the Arab Gulf states. Prove it to Russia. Prove it to China. Prove it, but above all, to their own people, who had been promised this moment for 45 years. The commander of the operation, a senior IRGC admiral operating from a hardened bunker beneath Bandar Abbas, gave the order at exactly 2:41 p.m. local time. Everything launched at once. 112 fast attack boats throttled their engines and burst out of cover in white sprays of foam, racing toward the carrier group from multiple vectors. 37 Noor missiles ignited on their coastal launchers and went supersonic over the water, skimming at 4 meters altitude, flying below the radar horizon. 22 Khalij-Fars ballistic missiles arced into the sky on columns of fire, their trajectories bent toward the Ford's GPS coordinates. And from 11 different launch sites, More than 100 drones rose into the Gulf air like a swarm of metal hornets, buzzing south and west toward the American fleet. To any outside observer, and Iranian state television had already been alerted to begin recording the sea. It looked like the most devastating naval ambush since Pearl Harbor. It was not, because Iran had made 6 catastrophic mistakes. The first mistake: they thought the E-2D Hawkeyes couldn't see their fast attack boats under camouflage netting. They were wrong. For 19 days, the carrier group's intelligence section had been feeding data from P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft, MQ-4C Triton surveillance drones at 60,000 feet. An NRO satellite passes into a targeting matrix that already knew the precise coordinates of every single one of those 112 boats. The moment the boat's engines started, before they even cleared their netting, the tactical data link lit up every single one as a confirmed hostile. The second mistake: they aimed their ballistic missiles at the Ford's last known GPS position. But the Ford had changed course 37 minutes earlier, a routine turn into the wind for flight operations. 22 ballistic missiles were screaming toward a patch of empty ocean, 11 miles behind where the carrier actually was. The third mistake: they launched their Noor anti-ship missiles in ripple-fire sequence, not simultaneously, because their targeting crews had been trained on Russian doctrine that assumed a 5-second spacing between launches to prevent radar cross-interference between missiles. That 5-second spacing was all the Aegis system needed to track, classify, and assign a firing solution to every single one of them before the last missile even left its launcher. The fourth mistake: they had no idea that USS Delbert D. Black had been running in electronic emissions control mode for 3 days. Completely dark. No radar, no IFF, no radio transmissions. To Iranian surveillance, she didn't exist. She was not on their targeting list. She was running in total silence 32 miles north of the carrier, directly in the path of the approaching drone swarm, with every single one of her 96 VLS cells loaded and ready. The fifth mistake: they forgot about the submarines. The sixth mistake, and this was the one that truly ended everything: they had no idea that 48 hours earlier the National Security Council had authorized offensive cyber operations against IRGC Navy command and control infrastructure. At exactly 2:39 p.m., 2 minutes before the Iranian commander gave his launch order, a classified U.S. Cyber Command package uploaded through a compromised fiber node in Tehran quietly corrupted the encrypted frequency hopping protocol used by IRGC Navy boats to receive abort commands. The boats could receive their launch order. They could not receive any order to stop. What happened in the next 22 minutes was not a battle. It was a demonstration. At 2:41 p.m. and 14 seconds, USS Lady Gulf's AN/SPY-1 radar completed its initial sweep and returned tracks on 109 of the 112 fast attack boats, all 37 Noor missiles, 20 of the 22 ballistic missile tracks, and 63 of the drone signatures. In the Combat Information Center, the Aegis system had already processed engagement sequencing for every track and was ready to begin firing. The commanding officer of Lady Gulf gave a single order: weapons free. The first Standard Missile 2 left its vertical launch cell at 2:41 p.m. and 31 seconds. It was followed by another, then 10. Then the R. Lee Burke destroyers joined the volley. Lady Gulf, Delbert D. Black, Cole, Laboon, Jason Dunham. All 5 Aegis ships firing simultaneously. The sky above the carrier group turned white with exhaust plumes. Missiles rose and curved and descended in precise, computer-calculated arcs toward their assigned targets. In the air picture, the incoming Noor missile tracks began disappearing. 1, 3, 6, 11, 17, 22. The Aegis engagement computer was killing them faster than the Iranian batteries could refire. The SM-2 Block 3A missile, traveling at Mach 3.5 with a 137-pound blast fragmentation warhead, was designed to hit subsonic sea-skimming missiles with a probability of kill exceeding 97%. Against 37 Noor missiles spread across multiple approach vectors, the math was catastrophically one-sided. 27 seconds after the first SM-2 launch, the ballistic missile tracks resolved into their terminal descent phase. The Lady Gulf shifted 2 of its fire control channels to SM-3 Block YB engagement mode. The SM-3, a true ballistic missile defense interceptor, reached altitudes of over 160 kilometers and struck its targets at closing speeds exceeding Mach 10. 19 of the 22 Khalij Fars missiles were destroyed in their terminal phase before they crossed inside 50 nautical miles. The remaining 3 fell harmlessly into the sea 11 miles from the carrier's current position, exactly where the Ford would have been if she hadn't changed course 37 minutes ago. At altitude, the EA-18G Growlers had already begun jamming the Karar jet drone's data links and their radar altimeters, causing 9 of the 16 to lose altitude control and impact the sea. The remaining 7 pressed on and were picked up by the Phalanx CIWS aboard the Ford and 2 of the destroyers. The Phalanx, 20mm, 3,000 rounds per minute, fully autonomous, engaged all 7 in a 31-second firing sequence. 0 penetrations. Meanwhile, USS Delbert D. Black had begun engaging the drone swarm from the north. From 32 miles away, completely outside the swarm's detection range, she launched her first volley of evolved Sea Sparrow missiles at 2:42 p.m. The ESSM Block 2 was specifically designed to engage multiple small, fast, low observable targets simultaneously. In 6 volleys across 11 minutes, Delbert D. Black engaged and destroyed 61 Shahed, 136 and 14 Mohajer 6 drones without a single weapon reaching the outer defense ring. On the water, the fast attack boat problem was resolved in the most direct possible way. At 2:43 p.m., the 2 Los Angeles-class submarines received their targeting packages via extremely low-frequency radio. Each submarine carried 12 Tomahawk missiles in its torpedo room. Neither had been detected by any Iranian asset in the 6 weeks leading up to the attack, a fact that would become clear to Tehran only in the aftermath. Both submarines came shallow, launched, and were back at depth before any Iranian radar operator had time to process what was happening. But it wasn't Tomahawks that dealt with the fast attack boats. From the Ford's deck, at 2:44 p.m., 14 FA-18 Super Hornets were catapulted into the air in a launch cycle that took 9 minutes from first cat shot to last. Each aircraft carried 2 AGM-88 HARMs for SEAD operations, plus 4 AGM-154 joint standoff weapons and 2 AIM-120 AIM-RAMs for self-defense. They formed up at Angels 10, received their tasking from the E-2D, divided into 4 sections, and proceeded inbound toward the Iranian fast attack boat swarm on 4 separate headings. The boats were fast, some were doing over 40 knots, but they were small, open-hulled fiberglass and aluminum craft with 0 air defense capability. What followed was not aerial combat. It was surgical, methodical destruction. Each JSOW glided from beyond visual range, identified its assigned boat via IIR seeker, and impacted amidships. 1 weapon, 1 boat, no misses. In 19 minutes of continuous strikes, all 112 Iranian fast attack craft were sunk or destroyed. The waters north and northeast of the carrier group burned with fuel fires from one horizon to the other. The IRGC Admiral's martyrdom fist was spread across 30 miles of ocean floor. Not a single fast attack boat came within 11 nautical miles of any U.S. warship. Not 1 missile, drone, or rocket reached the Ford. The casualty count on the American side: 2 sailors aboard USS Cole suffered minor lacerations when a Noor missile was intercepted close aboard, and its debris struck the ship's bow. Both were treated and returned to duty within 40 minutes. Now came the part that Tehran had not planned for. At 3:03 p.m., 22 minutes after the first Iranian shot, the retaliatory strike package was already airborne. It had been pre-positioned 60 hours before the attack, before Iranian commanders had even finalized their plan. U.S. intelligence had assessed the martyrdom fist preparations with high confidence, and recommended pre-authorization of a counter-strike package to the National Command Authority. That authorization had been granted. Targets had been assigned. Assets had been pre-positioned. All that was needed was a trigger. Iran had just pulled it. From Diego Garcia, 2 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers had departed 14 hours earlier on a mission profile that put them over Iranian airspace at exactly the moment the counterstrike was authorized. Each B-2 carried 16 2,000-pound JDA-MER precision guided bombs and 2 GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, the 30,000-pound bunker busters designed specifically to destroy deeply buried hardened facilities. Their first targets, the hardened IRGC Navy command bunker beneath Bandar Abbas and the underground missile storage facility at Kuhestak. From Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, 4 B-1B Lancers had been orbiting over the Gulf of Oman since 8 a.m. that morning, each loaded with 24 JAS-SMER long-range cruise missiles. Their target list: 7 IRGC Navy surface warfare bases along the Iranian coast, 4 coastal missile battery sites, and the Shahid Bahonar naval installation at Bandar Abbas Harbor. From the 2 Los Angeles-class submarines, already reloaded from their reserve magazines, a second salvo of Tomahawk Block 5 missiles was en route to 11 pre-programmed GPS coordinates. Radar stations, drone launch sites, fuel depots, maintenance facilities, communications nodes. The Tomahawks flew nap-of-earth profiles through the Zagros foothills at 500 miles per hour, threading valleys at altitudes of 200 feet, invisible to radar. The Ford's air wing launched a second strike package at 3:09 p.m. This time, 22 FA-18S and 6 F-35C Lightning IIs, making their first combat appearance in this theater. The F-35s, with their AN/FPG-81 AESA radar and full sensor fusion, took the lead elements. They entered Iranian airspace first, completely invisible to the coastal air defense radars that were still trying to reboot after the Cyber Command package had corrupted their signal processors. What the Iranian radar operators saw, when they saw anything at all, was noise. Static. Ghost tracks going in 6 directions at once. The first bombs hit Bandar Abbas at 3:31 p.m. The bunker beneath the naval headquarters took a direct GBU-57 penetrator strike that reached 17 meters underground before detonation. The structure had been built in the 1990s to withstand conventional air attack. It had not been built to withstand a weapon that weighed 15 tons and carried 6,000 pounds of PBXN-109 high explosive. The bunker ceased to exist as a functional facility in 0.4 seconds. In the next 11 minutes, the Tomahawks and JASSMERs reached their targets almost simultaneously. Bandar Abbas Naval Base's fuel storage complex detonated in a fireball visible from space. The fast patrol craft maintenance facility at Bandar Lenge, where Iran had been repairing and arming its speedboat fleet, was hit by 4 JSMs in a pattern that collapsed every building on the 12-acre compound. The missile battery site on Abu Musa Island was struck by 6 Tomahawks. The radar and communications installation on Greater Tunbi was destroyed by 2 JDAMs delivered by a B-2 traveling at 40,000 feet and never detected by a single Iranian sensor. 7 IRGC coastal bases, 11 missile and drone launch sites, 3 air defense radar nodes, 1 underground command bunker, 2 submarine pens at Chabahar that intelligence had flagged as capable of hosting Iranian midget submarines, the Shahid Nakhdi missile corvette, which had fired 3 of the Noor missiles and had attempted to make for the coast after the engagement. It was intercepted 31 miles offshore by 2 F/A-18S, 1 AGM-84 Harpoon center mass. The corvette sank in 4 minutes. By 4:17 p.m., 96 minutes after the first Iranian fast attack boat throttled its engine, the retaliatory campaign was complete. The final tally compiled by Navicent Intelligence the following morning was precise and unambiguous. On the Iranian side, 112 fast attack craft sunk, All 37 Noor coastal missile launchers destroyed, 26 by airstrikes, 11 during the engagement when their radar signatures were used to guide harm missiles directly back to their source. All 22 Khalidij Fair's ballistic missile transporter erector launchers destroyed after their launch positions were fixed by the E-2D's radar intercept of their boost phase signatures. 14 IRGC naval facilities completely destroyed or rendered non-functional. 11 drone launch sites eliminated. 4 radar stations. 1 hardened command bunker. 2 submarine pens. 1 missile corvette sunk. Iranian state media would later claim that all attacks had been intercepted. The satellite imagery released by U.S. Space Command the next morning told a different story. Personnel casualties on the Iranian side. 341 IRGC Navy personnel killed, 187 wounded, confirmed by signals intelligence intercepts of Iranian military hospital communications. U.S. casualties. 2 sailors, minor lacerations, returned to duty. The USS Gerald R. Ford continued her transit of the Persian Gulf at 15 knots. Her flight deck was already being configured for the next day's operations. In her Combat Information Center, the tactical data link was bright with contacts, tracks, and sensor feeds from across the theater. She had not slowed down. She had not diverted. She had not flinched. In Tehran, the state television broadcast that had been prepped to show footage of a burning American carrier ran dead air for 4 hours before the government cut to a religious program. The IRGC admiral who planned the martyrdom fist was not available for comment. He was under the rubble of his own bunker. This is what happens when you mistake America's restraint for weakness. This is what happens when you spend 6 weeks planning the perfect ambush against the most sophisticated naval force in the history of warfare. And you forget that they have been watching you plan it the entire time. The Persian Gulf is 30 feet deep in places. It is flat and hot and offers nowhere to hide. The men who sailed it for 3,000 years knew that a trap set in open water works only if your enemy doesn't see you setting it. The USS Gerald R. Ford saw everything. She always does. And when the shooting started at 2:41 p.m. in the full blaze of the Gulf afternoon, when 112 boats and 37 missiles and 100 drones came screaming across that flat, burning water, the answer that came back was so total, so precise, so overwhelming in its violence, that there was never a moment of doubt about how it would end. There never is. This is the Persian Gulf. This is the U.S. Navy. This is what happens when you fire the first shot at something that was designed, from its keel to its radar mast, to its deeply trained and lethally skilled crew of 5,000, to make sure the last shot is always ours.